We will draw a memory aid for the VFR weather minimums. First, draw two lines. Label the top one 18,000 feet MSL and the second one 10,000 feet MSL. Now in the lower portion, divide it into two sections. Label the left hand side controlled and the right hand side uncontrolled. On the right hand side, draw a dashed line in the middle and label it 1,200 feet AGL or above ground level. Now this is AGL. The 10,000 and 18,000 we labeled above are MSL, something to remember. Now in each of these sections, draw a cloud. Let's start at the top one. For above 10,000 feet MSL, the visibility requirement is 5 statute mile visibility. And the cloud clearance requirements are 1,000 feet above the cloud, 1,000 feet below the cloud, and 1 statute mile horizontally. I remember it as 5111. 5 statute mile visibility, 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 statute mile horizontally. On the control side, the cloud clearance requirement or the visibility requirement is 3 statute miles, and the cloud clearance requirements are 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. So I remember this as 3 Cessna 152s. On the uncontrolled side, the visibility requirement, 1 statute mile visibility, 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. So I remember this as 1 Cessna 152. Now, below 1,200 feet AGL in uncontrolled airspace, the visibility requirement is 1 statute mile, and the cloud clearance is just clear of clouds. Now, at night time, there is no difference whether you are below 1,200 feet AGL or above 1,200 feet AGL. In fact, there is no difference whether you are in controlled airspace or uncontrolled airspace. At night time, the visibility requirement is 3 statute miles and cloud clearance is 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. So this is the nighttime requirement for both controlled and uncontrolled airspace, and whether you are above or below 1,200 feet AGL. Now, there are two exceptions to remember here. And the first exception is in uncontrolled airspace at night, if you are doing pattern work within half a mile of airport, then your requirement is 1 statute mile visibility and clear of clouds. This is the first exception. The second exception is in Bravo airspace, the requirement is 3 statute miles visibility and clear of clouds. Now, this is less restrictive because in Bravo, all aircraft are controlled. Whether you are on IFR or VFR aircraft, all of the aircraft are monitored and controlled by ATC because it is a very busy airspace. So that's why the cloud clearance requirement is a bit less restrictive. Now, few things to note here. Above 10,000 feet MSL, you will see that the horizontal cloud clearance requirement is 1 statute mile, and that is more than 5,000 feet. And that's because the restriction of 250 knots goes away at 10,000 feet MSL. So higher altitudes, you can fly much faster, which means you need more clearance to see the cloud and take appropriate actions. So the cloud clearance requirement is higher. The other thing that I try to remember, you will see that the cloud clearance below the cloud is 500 feet, which is less than the 1,000 feet above. So if your plane is here, it's easier to see the cloud above through your windshield. So that's why you need just 500 feet below the cloud to be able to see it. But if your plane is above the cloud, you need more clearance to see below the aircraft. So it's 1000 feet above and 500 feet below. So there we have it. These are the VFR weather minimums. Let's take few examples and solve them as per what we have drawn. This is one example. Uncontrolled airspace is Class G airspace. To operate in Class G airspace, the night visibility requirement for flight at 3000 feet AGL but below 10,000 feet MSL is. Now, night visibility, it doesn't matter whether you are in controlled or uncontrolled airspace. Also, it doesn't matter whether you are above 1,200 feet AGL or below, right? At night, the visibility requirements are 3 Cessna 152. So, 3 statute mile visibility, 1000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2000 feet horizontal. So tap to show answer. All right. Another question, refer to figure 26, area 2. The day VFR visibility and cloud clearance requirements to operate over the town of Cooperstown after departing and climbing out of Cooperstown Airport at or below 700 feet AGL. So let's look at figure 26. I'll expand it, area 2. And this is Cooperstown. So the magenta, the shaded magenta tells us that Cooperstown, that area is a Class E transition, where the Class E airspace goes down all the way to 700 feet. And below 700 feet near the airport, it is uncontrolled. So Class G airspace. So the question asks below 700 feet, which means we are looking for uncontrolled airspace below 700 feet. And as per our drawing, that is 1 statute mile visibility and clear of clouds. Let's tap to show answer. Okay, so it's 1 mile visibility and clear of clouds. Next question. To operate at night in Class E airspace, you need, and they're asking for the visibility. Now, Class E airspace is controlled airspace. So that is the left-hand side of our drawing. And it actually doesn't matter whether it is controlled or uncontrolled, or whether it's above or below 1200 feet AGL. The visibility requirement is 3 Cessna 152s. So we need 3 statute mile visibility, 1000 above, 500 feet below, and 2000 feet horizontally. So let's look at the answer. Another question. What minimum visibility and clearance from clouds are required for VFR operations in Class G airspace at 700 feet AGL or below during daylight hours? So Class G is uncontrolled. So we are looking at right hand side of our diagram, and 700 feet AGL or below. So that is the bottom right of our drawing, and the visibility there is 1 statute mile and clear of clouds. Tap to show answer. So 1 mile visibility and clear of clouds. Here's another one. This is an interesting one. Refer to figure 22, area 1. The visibility and cloud clearance requirements to operate VFR during daylight hours over Sandpoint Airport at 1200 feet AGL are. Let's look at figure 22, area 1, Sandpoint Airport right here. So you see the magenta shaded portion around this airport. That tells us that it's a Class E transition, which begins at 700 feet AGL. The question says 1200 feet AGL. At 1200 feet AGL, we are in Class E airspace, and Class E airspace is controlled. So controlled airspace means we are in the left-hand side of our drawing. The daytime VFR requirements are 3 Cessna 152s, 3 statute mile visibility, 1000 above, 500 below, and 2000 feet horizontal. Let's look at the answer. 3 miles, 1000 above, 500 feet below, and 2000 feet horizontally. And the same explanation here is written out in text form. Next one, the minimum visibility and distance from clouds required for VFR operations on an airway below 10,000 feet MSL. Airways are in controlled airspace. So in controlled airspace, which is the left-hand side of our diagram, the requirement is 3 Cessna 152s. So we need 3 statute miles and 1,000 feet above the cloud, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontal from the cloud. There is also Class B exception. If the airway is in Class B airspace, then it's clear of clouds. That's the requirement. Next one, the minimum flight visibility required for VFR flights above 10,000 feet MSL and more than 1,200 feet AGL in controlled airspace. So this is the top part of our drawing. Above 10,000 feet MSL, we need 5111. So the flight visibility, that's the only thing that's asked for here, is 5 statute miles. Tap to show answer, and it's 5 miles.